I've been enjoying the shop today for the first time in months. It feels like, and was making up some custom trim for this fireplace surround that I'm completing. And yeah, it was really nice to just put some TLC. Spent a couple hours just tidying some things up. There was lots of stuff just about, and then the table saw wouldn't turn on, so I took sort of traced the wiring, had power at the plug, and then worked my way in. Sure enough, the switch, one of the little slide-on clips, was pretty loose, so I just tightened it a little bit. Works like a charm, but I got to retape connections and redo connections, and just put some love into it, which felt amazing, and then made some trim and sanded it up, and then did a nice vacuum of the shop after, which feels really, really dynamite. And yeah, it feels really nice to just be around the shop and enjoying here after going out to the job site. And especially the last while, I find as I've gotten older, one of the more challenging things are the physical tasks of just moving tools in and moving tools out on a daily basis, even if it's just like my drill bag and my little tool box, even if I've left stuff in my pouch, just hauling those in and going up onto the front porch, up to the second level, up to the attic. So yeah, it could be far worse, but those are things that have been coming up. And it's also nearing completion as well too, so there's that aspect of Todd's wanting to check out, fucking done with this,
Yeah.
and there's still things to complete, and buying into that Todd perspective just creates more suffering. And so I was expressing to Andrea yesterday after the jail I was going over, and I said, just really not feeling it over there, today. And she said, well, what are some techniques, that you could apply, or what's some tools you could apply? And right then it just came through. I was like, less Todd, more God. And I was just, and what came through was like, you have to grout the tiles that you put in place. Go grout the tiles and just see what flows after that, Stop trying to figure out what you're going to, filling the whole afternoon with stuff. Go and be about what you know is required and which you're psychologically and physically and mentally prepared for, and see what happens next. So I did that, and it went really smooth, and it was a nice peaceful time grouting and cleaning up and wiping tiles off, and then just taking some measurements. And at that point, during the grouting, the clear vision for the trim and the customization of the fireplace came in. And I had a nice mental picture of it to then record some measurements and sketch out some things so that I could make up some trim this morning. And so less Todd, more God.
Less Todd, more God. Yeah, that's good. Everyone could say that. They could just wander around saying, less Todd, more God.
Or they could sub in their own name. It just might not have the same ring,
Yeah.
Less Jonathan, more God. It still sounds good and feels good. What are you saying, brother?
I'm saying it was raining this morning, and it's rare that we have like a consistent overcast, and light rain coming down. Oftentimes it's a cloud and then it rains and it's clear, and then a cloud and it rains and it's clear. And this was a just a total covering of clouds, and it's this light rain blowing in, and really felt like fall. Yeah, I've really felt that seasonal change, and cooler temperatures outside. And I've been here 2.5 years, and I'm still recognizing aspects of seasonal change. They're so subtle in comparison to where I have lived most of my life that it's you know, it's really sitting with it and being aware that it isn't just summer all the time, you know.
Yeah.
So that's been nice. And you know, on my plate has been this unfoldment of recognition as to, you know, the really high place that I may be. And last night I was reading an article of a woman's experience with ayahuasca, and in that process a fear came up, and she was faced with this fear, and then could see how this idea was in humanity. And she was asked if she would you know, take it on for all of humanity. And she said yes. And this mountain of fear and anguish came upon her. And it began a long struggle for her to come about a position of recognizing the more that she fought it, the stronger it became. And that the reason that she was fighting it was because deep inside of her there was a fear of her own. And then came upon the realization that only love is real. And in announcing that only love is real, this darkness was repelled by that. However, still had a footing. The more that she proclaimed that only love is real, the further back it was repelled. It was repulsed by this love, basically. However, there was still this, you know, having to repeatedly state for herself that only love is real. And she asked, you know, there must be an easier way. And then came the realization of being love, of being love so certainly within herself that it radiated from her. And it was this state that clearly manifested a space around her that nothing else could penetrate. A lot of people talk to me about, well, that's all well and good and everything, but you gotta, you know, you gotta dig out the manure to have a space for this love. And I personally find that to be extra work. Extra work, you know? And turn to the recognition, the understanding of love as the tool, and the being of love as the power that gets everything done. So rather than spend time looking around for weeds that need to be pulled, that I instead look around for reasons for love. And it isn't this kind of love, you know, that is possessive. It is a love that is giving, that is ever giving. And it's like looking around, where may I plant a seed of beauty? Where may I plant a seed of love? And these seeds of love grow in such a way that it overshadows everything else, that it illuminates all corners and crevices, that simply seeking within myself a reason for love and being with it, that love in itself clears the way. Rather than spend time pushing out darkness, simply residing with love. There isn't any out there that I personally need to go after. There isn't anything out there that I need to go push away. For anything other than the true power of life there isn't any other. That which is already. And the power of that which is love. And so therefore, I may simply look within myself and say, well, what do I really love? What is something that I love? And when I find it, I embrace it and love it and be that love, and then be that love so fully that I feel it, that I experience it. And in that experience of love, that is the opening the door to love, the looking for it. What is something that I have actually loved? What is something that I truly love? Is it my parent? Is it my child? Is it my partner? Is it my dog? Is it my cat? Is it my accomplishments in my day? Is it a rainbow? Is it a flower? What is it that I truly love? And when I find that, then I rest in that love, and that love on its own expands. That love on its own clears the way, blows the dust mites out of the corner, sweeps up the rotten leaves, wipes the dirt from the windows. It itself clears the way. There isn't anything that I must do to make the way clear. However, I may be in love, and love clears the way. Some people have a distance from love, have a lack of recognition of what love is. And so sometimes gratitude is easier to come by. And there again, it is the same. What is it that I am truly grateful for? What is one little tiny thing, past or present, that I am grateful for? And resting in that gratitude. And that gratitude opens the way as well. So really embracing that in every moment. And it is the conscious, present embracing of it that is the way. Being fully present within myself, consciously aware, and consciously choosing it. And then it does its work. It's been beautiful. And I have experienced it before. And this was a great reminder of the mechanics. The description was very well thought out and well described, so that I might recognize in myself the steps I had taken previously when I embraced love fully. And then I could also see how in my wanderings I consciously chose something other than love. Be it fear or judgment or fickle or wrong, right or wrong. You know, this good or bad, that's good and that's bad. You know, every time we choose a positive polarity, we're choosing a negative polarity to go with it. And so as far as right or wrong, good or bad or whatever, if I say, well, this is good, I'm also holding something as bad. Mm-hmm. And so therefore, separation. And so
I was going to say, that really is the nature of this dualistic plane, that we, I've heard Ellen Watts say very eloquently, that when, we who believe ourselves to be good, we couldn't be good if we didn't know that there were other people out there that were bad.
Yeah.
We don't know black without white. We don't know walking without talking about what we're walking upon. And, so when I think of that duality in love, this is what is brought up for me. That I agree that love is the highest path. That agape, that unconditional love that's flowing to us from Creator in each moment is what sustains us. And when we open to it and become a conduit of it, wow, the amount that we can, the light, capital L, capital I, capital G, capital H, capital T, that we can share or shine about is really amazing. There's the interesting flip side to that love, that we can, as I've heard it described, it really resonates as truth in my heart, that we fall in love with someone, or we become, we see that, and then particularly the early love experience that we have, we can see that person as, not just as a catalyst for loving feelings to awaken within us. We see them as the source of that love.
Yeah.
Rather than seeing them as that catalyst. And then, you mentioned possession at one time. We wish to possess that and own it, and then really is that unconditional love, but it's very conditional love.
Mm-hmm.
And, so then we get ourselves pulled into that trap. We don't want to know, we don't want to be without it. And, we don't know what we would do if we were without it, so we don't even contemplate that. We just push it away. And in essence, we manifest more of it, and as we try and possess it more, it becomes further from us, so it really is that embracing of love and recognizing that yes, there is special work to do with some person. However, they are not love. I remember when my high school relationship with my girlfriend came to an end, I thought, I'll never care about anybody so much again. I'm going to protect myself. Well, really what I was doing was just saying, that was the only source of love for you, Todd. So I have to close off to it, because, that'll protect me from ever being hurt again. And then what are we really hurt the most by then? Then we're, imposing that separation from God, that connection to the universe, to Creator that is by nature love. And, that's such a huge way of separation coming in. So that love is such a powerful force. And again, that dualistic side of it, the ability, as you mentioned, for this woman, that the only thing that is real is love. And then just, embracing the being love, being a conduit of that unconditional love, really shifting things for her. There's that other side where it can really trap us and really pull us in when we see that love connected to certain individuals or circumstances.
Yeah. And I hear you. And that's, I have been down this road of, discussion, and the idea that something is necessary for love isn't love. That's lack and fear. And so we walk that line, that edge, right? And initially, without having an openness, a free-flowing connection with love, we use a catalyst. We use an instance or a circumstance. We believe in a circumstantial life. So we turn to a circumstance where we have experienced love, something that I have loved. And I have even used a past girlfriend as an exercise, a memory of an expression of love with her. She was no longer my girlfriend. We actually had an uncomfortable breakup. And however, in looking for an opportunity for love, I remembered, okay, well, I felt love in that moment. And so I used a moment with her, I was very young, to remember the feeling of love. Then when I remembered the feeling of love, I let the memory go and resided in that feeling of love. And the more that I was with that feeling of love, the more it grew. And then my heart burst open and I nearly was bawling out loud because there was so much love pouring through me. And so the circumstances are not necessary for love. We just, when we're living in this idea that the outside is what's real and a circumstantial existence, that we use a circumstance to guide the way of remembering what love felt like, what the experience of love was, what my posture was, my attitude, what was the experience that I call love. Then I lay the circumstances down. Once I really rest in love, then I can lay the circumstances down for love and let love be. Like falling in love. You mentioned falling in love. And there's like this honeymoon period of falling in love where people say, oh, I fell in love, and, I had another girlfriend. She says, well, how long is the honeymoon going to last for this love that we have fallen into? I said, what do you mean? She says, well, it always fades. And I said, why does it always fade? What is this that it must fade? Well, it does. You don't just stay in love. And this spurred me on to later realizing that, yes, I may stay in love, that I may fall in love and I may stay in love. And that is a choice. It is a choice of my being that I might stay in love and to fall in love so deeply that one then resides in love. And so that experience may still fade if one so chooses other than love. Once one falls in love, it is there and ever available. However, we may still choose being out of love. And like you're saying, the girlfriend, especially for us guys, oh man, she was the one. She was the one. I tell you, none will ever compare to her. We paint her up. I mean, she never looked so good. She never looked so good in real life as it was when I was without her, and I dressed her up to be the almighty love. Yes. And once, we blame her for our love rather than receive it graciously from that which is already. Mm-hmm. And so in that's not love, that's possession. That's possession and fear and lack. The idea that I'm without, that I'm separate from love, that I'm separate from love, and there's something that must come from outside of me to give me love. Mm-hmm. Well, when I personally really dove into love, first I was falling and then I turned head forward into it and dove into love. And when I did, there wasn't any circumstances. It was that love was already there. Mm-hmm. That love is ever present. And is just simply whether or not I am tuned to it moving through me. And so when I fell in love with my first girlfriend, I fell in love. I was like, oh, this love. It was simply that I gave love the opportunity of expressing itself through me, that I aligned with love. And love said yes. And love came shining forth, and I felt it move through my body. And right then we could say, oh, it's because of her. Or we could say, oh, look what I've tuned into. Mm-hmm. And so that's where I even, used that experience as a tuning device so that I might tune into love, and love would move through me yet again, knowing though that it wasn't because of her, because she wasn't even in my life anymore. You know, that this person wasn't even in my life or available to me. However, I knew that I had experienced love in that moment. So I tuned into that experience, remembered it, the smell, the feeling, my posture, the attitude, the freedom, the vulnerability, the excitement, the unknownness. And there was love. And love came shining forth. And then I laid down the circumstances of the tuning device and reside in love. And then love does its work.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's real easy to blame the outside world. I mean, that's like you say, the dualistic nature that we live in, the left brain, right brain, inside, outside, ego, self, you know, all that stuff. And this is part of what I see as the evolution of humankind, is opening to the awareness that life is happening, that this is the expression of life, and life is all life. That a stone is of life, that the sun is of life, that Mars is of life, that all the stars and the cosmos and the earth and the atmosphere, this is all of life. Science would like to say that life means something that is actively living, that my senses can detect an activity within as being life. And that's outside of life. That's a concept that's outside of the expression of life. For without the stone, we wouldn't have a container for the water. Without the stone, there would be no purchase for the earth and the plants and the water and the atmosphere, and therefore the quote unquote living things would have no environment to live within. Therefore, to remove the stone would be to remove the environment, and then for remove the life. Well, you can't remove the stone without removing life. And we are without the ability of removing life. Therefore, the stone must be within life.
And life must be within the stone.
Yes.
Just basking in that energy a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
There was something that was coming up to share, and then I feel I began to think too hard about it, focus upon it too much, and come out of just the basking in the energy, and it left.
Oh.
And there was a moment of, I really wanted to talk about that. And then I came back to just being.
Yeah, this beauty.
Yeah, this love. And even for me of late, you know, just to, and really being aware of the anxiety, or the, you know, the endeavoring to be a few steps ahead in my consciousness when I'm engaged with something, you know, just the anxiety that and the tension that is created there, that pulls me out of a loving space, you know, of a higher vibrational space, to just be with, you know, again, you know, so a greater recognition of, as I've talked about or touched on the last few weeks, about not being without confusion of being the actor or being the doer of the situation. So even in the contemplation of something that is outside of the moment, you know, that is again being the doer, being the actor. You know, that this isn't a dance. This is without being a dance with creation. You know, this is about Todd making his impact. You know, like yesterday. Had to go. Todd had to go grout the tiles, and then Todd really needed to get as much done as possible, because new projects are starting and need to get this completed rather than just being with it. And also all the contemplation of those things, the putting on these, well, just the attachment to what is required to be completed rather than being in harmony with what is in the highest benefit to be completed in each moment. And often that difference is very subtle, but for me, it's really becoming more than something that I just feel in each moment. It's really a palpable feeling of just surrendering to the flow and being with it. And it's been interesting. I've seen my energy increase. I've seen my just natural zest for being with, things that bring joy. Before, it wasn't long ago that, thinking that I was out creating things, building things in the day, coming home, it was like, I don't want to work on our house. I don't want to do anything here. I've done that enough already. And really just feeling at ease of just flowing into having a few little projects on the go here and just, getting them completed. And we put in a window in the bathroom and removed an old one that had been covered over, and some old uninsulated doors that were underneath an addition, taking them off and pouring a new curb and putting a frame in there and building an insulated door and patching stucco on the house where the window was. Those types of things would in the past cause me a great deal of anxiety, thinking about, okay, well, I'm going to work on those when I get home. Okay, what things do I need to be prepared for? What things do I need to have lined up? And thinking about that at lunch, thinking about it the night before. And now it's shifted to be more of a space of, oh yeah, there's that, and then it just naturally comes up if there's things that are required. I'm just, I'm driving by the building center, I can stop in and pick those things up, or pick up something I require to borrow, to complete it, rather than becoming all consuming in my mind. And then that energy, that anxiety about it, stealing so much energy that could be devoted to the actual completion of it, physical completion, and as such then just depletes that physical energy, and then it's without being completed at all. So yeah, interesting shifts. And what it's been feeling like for self is just letting go of the struggle. Again, back to less Todd, more God.
Yeah. It reminds me of the discussion about let go of the outcome and be about the moment. That give the fruit of thy labors up to God. That's a pretty big dog you've got there.
He's a big lap dog.
He's a big lap dog.
Hey, you wanted to come in and be part of this discussion, hey, Beej?
Hello, Bija. Hey. Hello.
Hello, Uncle Jonathan. Hey, oh, come here. Good boy. Hey, what about that discussion drew you in? Hey?
So yeah, when I'm all focused on the fruits of the labor, then I'm out of the moment, and therefore, basically get to miss out on the opportunity that's right here before me, which is the expression of life while the grout goes into the tile. And when I'm all about, oh, I need to get this done, I need to get on to the next thing, and I'm continuously planning the next step and the next step and the next step, well, that's where I am, is in that field of existence rather than fully present in my body in this moment with this life that is happening now. And I recognize that a practice of mine has been escaping this life when involved in some task that I have defined as somebody else's. This is what somebody else wants me to do. And so I set the body in motion, and then the mind is off in Never Never Land. And thinking about something else, thinking about, lately it has been a lot of thinking about having conversation with the people who put me at the task. And telling them what's up.
Yeah.
You wanted me to do it this way. I'm doing it this. You should, and I'm not even with the task. I'm in this tumultuous conversation with them about how I'm right and they're wrong, and then I feel so very uncomfortable. With this great discomfort that it wells up within me. So I've been in great recognition that this is something that has come through my life as a past identity. When I was in early childhood school, I wanted to be other places, and so I would go other places. Or I would escape my body and be out in other worlds, in other activities, and then the teacher would bring me back and say, "Hey, you want to join in the discussion?" I'm like, "No, not really. I'm having much more fun in space." And so then I carried that on into my adult life, so that when I'm involved in a task that's somebody else's design and without joy leading up to it, so then I don't put joy into it, and then I escape my body and I'm off in the etheric realm somewhere. And so lately I've just really been in recognition of that and just putting myself in my own shoes. Like, hey, here I am. This is that can wait till tomorrow. Let loose those thoughts and be with this present moment. I have an exercise of gripping with my toes as a bringing myself present, whether it's in my shoes or slippers or flip-flops or bare feet on the sand, of grabbing hold of the earth with my toes and really bringing myself fully into my body, into this awareness of this moment, of this is the life that is happening now. And all of that thinking, that's another realm that actually is outside of the life I've been born into, the life I've come alive into. And so I do my best. I'm just really grateful for the awareness that I slip in and out of my body. And I know that, speaking of love earlier, that love is available when I'm fully present. I'm fully present in this moment. That's when love is available. And so while I'm doing the shopping, there's a time for planning and there's a time for endeavoring. And so when I'm in the planning stage, I'm in the planning stage. And yes, I bring up visual imagery and I look about and I see, it's like I built a platform entryway to the path that I was building earlier. And someone says, well, how many bags of concrete does it take? And I said, well, it's probably 20 bags, They're like, well, how did you know? How do you know? I said, well, I looked at it. And with my mind's eye, I could see, well, a bag of concrete is so big and they cover so much space, and I counted how many bags would fit in that space. That's how many bags we need. And so, you know, I think I was within 3 bags. You know, estimate 20 and bring in 30 just because, you know, if things break or spills or, you know, something gets altered or whatever, you know, that I like having room for flexibility, but that requires visualization, you know. And so some might say, well, you're not being fully present. Well, in that planning stage, fully actively present in that visioning of the product.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, all of this, such a diverse meandering of existence. In the science of mind and spirit, I notice a lot of mind, science of mind, science of mind, science of mind, science of mind. And people getting caught up in the idea that their egoic mind is the creator.
Mm.
It's the spirit of life that is happening. And so as I reside fully in this moment, life is available to me, and I may experience its workings. When I turn myself over to it, to life, that is when that extra energy comes in. That is when my spirits are buoyed, even though I may have toiled for hours. Where my creativity blossoms, even though a moment before there was a mental block. Where life is happening now, here and now.
Yes, being present and being in a space of receiving love and allowing myself to be a channel or conduit for that love. That's the highest practice for self at this point in time. You know, we can say with certainty that things will shift, that will evolve as everything else does. Yeah, that being rooted in love and present with self, presently aware, is a place there's much gratitude within self to express about that. See? Oh, Isha. Yeah. Oh, peace. A big love in. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Good boy. Hey, sweetie. Oh, yeah. I love you. You're a sweetie. Yeah. Mm. See, you know, so I could see it as, you know, Bija is the force that opens, you know, this feeling vulnerable in love and just cuddling and snuggling and just feeling and receiving and sharing that love, and that without Bija, you know, it would be without existence. It's just a beautiful reminder that is what's there in every single moment.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bija. Bija is our guest today on Humans Being.
Yes, we are joined by the canine family.
Yes. He's usually here, just laying about, more of an active role today. Hey, Bear.
Yeah. So how about that Land Cruiser?
Well, uh, it's very special. We we went up there on Sunday, had a nice drive up. It was great as a family to see that. We'd never been on a drive for probably more than 2 hours with Sage, other than flying to Kauai, say. So this being a 5 hour drive, we just thought, okay, well, we'll wake Sage up. We left at about 6:37. And, we woke up Sage just as we were leaving. We had everything packed. So he was still got to rest a little bit in his car seat. And then a little over an hour into it, we stopped at a coffee shop and got a bagel and changed his diaper and we're out for about a half an hour and then continued on about another 2 hours and then stopped and we brought lunch and stopped at a nice park. It was a beautiful day in the city North Bay. It's right on this big lake. So we stopped at this park on the lake and had a nice picnic and Seiji had lots of play and then toured up, and it was about another 2 hours after that. And then he had a rest, and Andrea had a rest. And just an amazing opening of a new style of adventure for the family, rather than feeling confined to a couple-hour trip. So, we got up there and went to this guy's place, and he has like 25 miles of trails on his 400-acre property, and it's in this beautiful valley, like probably with 1,000-foot hills on either side, on the tallest in this valley. And so you drive south down through this valley for a ways, and then up into his place, and there's the Land Cruiser. And we went took a good look at it, underneath, crawling around, and inside in the engine compartment, and then went for like an hour and a half tour through the trails. And what a machine. That thing just goes through anything. And you put it in 4 low and it's just like a little tractor.
Yeah.
All sorts of oomph. And and then we went into town. He came in, the guy who owned it. It was great to meet him in person. And then we went and had dinner together. And he'd also, through another friend, connected us with this place to stay. And anyhow, so I'd said to her, she said, it's these old mansions that have been turned into suites. And they generally rent them out to like government executives or hydro executives, people that might be up there on longer term business and require a place to stay. So she said, I'll see, if you want, we could see if you could just get you a night there, and looked at them online. They look beautiful, right on the shores of this big Lake Temiskaming, which is like 5 miles wide and 35 miles long. And so anyhow, she said, she looked into it and she said, I think it'll be about $150 for the night. Are you guys okay with that? And there was a little motel that we could stay in for $80. But this, really was like, well, it's one night. This feels like a special little adventure. Let's go for it. So we said, yeah, we're good with that. So she contacted the owner, got back to us, and she said, the owner said you can have the room for no cost. It's like, wow, thank you. So yeah, this beautiful spot facing east, right on the side of this lake. Got to watch the sunrise over the lake and over the mountains to the east in northern Quebec. And then we went, because it was like a full kitchen in there, we brought eggs and bread and eggs and toast and coffee, and then went out, got packed up, went to the local coffee shop, got a coffee, and then met this friend who'd hooked us up with the room. And we went down and hung out at the park, and it was a beautiful morning. Seiji had a great play on the park. And then we ended up going back to the guy's place who had the Land Cruiser. And we get there, and he's got this like beautiful spot in the woods with his little picnic table and little fire pit. And we pull up there, and he's got the picnic table loaded with food. He's got this whole picnic. We sat there for like 2.5 hours, autumn day in the woods, that smell of the leaves, rotting a little bit, the dryness of the air, the sun coming down. Had this beautiful picnic of cheese and English muffins and butter, and he has all sorts of wild blueberries and raspberries on his property that he picked. He grows these Hoscop berries, which are part of the honeysuckle family. Those are called honeyberries, but I think they're native to Japan, and they're like a super rich in antioxidants. And so he had a bunch of those, and we ate those, and this blueberry honey that's comes from the area. And we just had tea. We just had this feast, sitting beside the Land Cruiser in the woods. And Seiji got a bit bored for a while, so I said, "Do you want to go hang out in the Land Cruiser?" So we went in, and he toured about in there, and even like I was pressing the clutch down, and he was shifting gears and having a great time. And then we went for I took the Land Cruiser on the road just to go for a rip, and had it up to like 55 miles an hour and on the gravel road, and it's still really handled amazing, and it was great. Andrea was a real trooper. She'd never been sort of like 4x4 overlanding like that before through the bush, and here she's 7 months pregnant, so I'm driving and just really going slow, and the roads were pretty good, and the ones that were rough we just went nice and slow, but she had a great time, and Seiji had a great time, and this guy who owns it is just a real character and real beautiful guy, very loving being, and so just a beautiful synchronicity. And I really feel so connected with that area. I know I've been there before, even though it was the first time in my life of being up in that area. And so yeah, really, really amazing. So we are, we're going to begin the process of it changing hands, changing ownership. I think he still has some attachment to it. I'm feeling that, that he's being he's without being in a hurry to, transfer it over. Hasn't been transferred into his name yet. So that would have to be done.
Oh, it's not even in his name.
No, he's had it for 4 years. He just has assigned ownership. So, was I telling you, it's only been like the guy prior to that had bought it brand new. It was owned by this doctor about 3 hours away from him where he is up north. And so you can tell there's been lots of love put in it. It's been well cared for. Definitely the best condition one I've seen in this neck of the woods, where we salt the roads pretty heavily.
Yeah.
And so yeah, feels pretty good. So it feels amazing. Just being patient, practicing patience with it and seeing how it flows.
Nice.
So yeah, really felt great to drive it. Really felt very connected with it. And
yeah, cool, man.
Yeah.
I like hearing about it, boy. It's my upbringing was always with a big vehicle in the woods, up in the forest. Yeah, my dad is a big outdoor enthusiast and survivalist. Just do-it-yourselfer. My mom's a do-it-yourselfer. We had the whole frontier living in the modern era, and so a great portion of our food came from the wild, as well as all of our heating.
Right.
We would there it is.
These are some that I took.
Yeah.
Continue with your story.
Yeah, so the first couple of years of my life, my parents were in a 4-wheel drive club.
Cool.
Yeah, and so, just me and my brother as little tots, getting out of the truck, lifted 4-wheel drive behemoth up in the national forest, crawling around, and they were only in it a short while. They felt that it was um, too great of an expense for to continually repair the vehicle.
Yeah.
So we left that investment for gathering firewood and hunting. And yeah, so that style of living is very dear to my heart. You know, let's go crawl around in the mountains, and then let's go fast on the dirt road. You know, and
Yeah.
and fast sometimes is 35 miles an hour. You know.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But,
Yeah. It really, very interesting with that area. I felt, there's in Southern Ontario, um, in contrast to say a place like Kauai, things are fairly driven by, everybody's going all the time. There's always things on. It's more success / achievement driven, and we can allow the definitions of those to be determined by the individual. As in contrast to a quality of life,
yeah.
living, our focus, and really, it was interesting being up in this Temiskaming area. It really felt like it's more quality of life driven up there than it is really about what you do and what you can achieve. And and for me, just loving remote solitude and growing up with that as a child, with my grandparents' property, and not really experiencing that a lot since, taking canoe trips and camping trips that get me into more remote places where there's real solitude in nature that feel good. Here, it's just like in this area, it's like it's right there. Like, this guy talks about, he's got his lakes depending on the time of year that he goes to catch fish. He's like, I don't like to go catch fish to go and just like sit around with a line in the water for more than 20 minutes and not have something biting. He goes, I want to catch something. The fish aren't biting, I'm not catching something, I don't stay. But he's got this place that he goes for lake trout. He's got this place that he goes for speckled trout. He's got this place that he goes for rainbow trout. And he's like, you just pull them out and you're eating fresh fish all the time. Hunting's a big part of it there, like this massive lake, like beautiful sailboats, smaller lakes for canoeing, all sorts of parks around, all sorts of government crown land that you can just wander about on and camp on. So it really feels like just that remote solitude being very, very accessible, and also there's this tri-town community where it's 3 little towns within about 15-mile radius, and there's a population of about 15,000. So you have some decent amenities in the area as well. So it certainly been coming up for me. Is it a place where we could spend some time of each year, just being up and in those parts, and like you can get a fixer-upper house for $75,000-$80,000. Like you can buy a nice 3-4 bedroom house for 175. So really, really affordable housing there as well. So yeah, it's just it's. I love exploring new places and just seeing what when we allow it to be a place where we're just naturally drawn to, really magical things happen, and we just, to me, even just the getting away for a night, even like if we go to my sister's a couple hours away up in the woods, I find it so refreshing coming back, that just getting out of the space where I normally am and, laying my head to rest in another space brings me back very refreshed and very open to new ways of being in the space where I normally am. So yeah, a great time away, and centered around the Land Cruiser. also, meeting a couple amazing beings, and, just having that stay gifted to us in this gorgeous place. Really just lots of signs that we're going the right direction.
Yeah.
So
Beautiful.
yeah.
Yeah, looks like a fun ride, man.
It's great. There was even one point there was a little water crossing that we did, and he said, "Oh, I'll tell you how to go about it." And I said, "Well, how about like if you've crossed it before, like what's there. I'd be more comfortable if you're driving, because he said coming out the other side's a little bit tricky." So he did that or whatever, and then we were driving again. I guess he took it out. He had it 4 low for the water crossing, and then 4 high, and then he took it out, and we were touring about. And we got into this mud, and I looked down, and it wasn't even in 4-wheel drive; it was just in rear-wheel drive. And we were going right through this mud, and he was just, taking it easy and going along, but nothing was really stopping it. And I said, wow, I can't believe we cruised through that big mud hole in 2-wheel drive. And he's like, oh, we did I thought I had it in 4-wheel drive. And so yeah, they're just amazing machines. And
yeah,
and the little diesel engine in it, lots of power for pushing that thing along, and just, yeah, I mean, the thing's built more like a tractor than it is a truck, really.
So would you share some of your experience in following synchronicity, in staying present and experiencing that flow of synchronous patterning?
Well, for me, the key is surrendering, and also keeping that, really being with that flow of gratitude, and really, it's been amazing for me, particularly with this house that we are the stewards of, and, vehicles that we've been stewards of, or, what others might say owned. When there's been requirement, or requirements have shifted and we've required something else, there's always been that new right option has just appeared. I remember when we decided we would, look at buying a house, and I just had it in my mind that we could find something for $175,000, which, with a shop, with a smaller 3-bedroom house, and have a nice lot. And yeah, we looked and looked, and we looked at houses, and that was a belief that turned into a knowing for self over a couple-year period. And then when we really started looking for a house, that was still within me, and housing prices had gone up a little bit more. So, the thought, oh, well, the rational mind was like, oh, is that still going to be possible to, to find a place for $175,000? Yet that knowing still existed, even though there were some inklings of doubt that the rational mind wished to cast on the situation. Yet in my heart, I knew that was true. And so we looked at houses for a number of months, and we were getting a little bit discouraged. Todd and Andrea, as opposed to the highest self, were getting a little discouraged. And then, the one thing we kept saying is, we will just know. When we find it, we'll just know. We know that to be true. And there is an absence of doubt there. And then there was one day, it was a Sunday, and Andrea was in yoga teacher training at the time, and she was going for an afternoon session that day. And so it was a Sunday. We'd gone for breakfast. And then she went straight after that to go to the teacher training, and I went for a little tour about, and I just thought I'd look for places for sale. I'd just drive around some streets that I hadn't driven down before, being mindful of what's available what's available for sale. And sure enough, there's this little computerized app that you can see for all listings. some places come up that aren't on there. So anyhow, sure enough, I came down this street and I looked, and here was this little white stuccoed house. And I look, and there's this massive 25 by 30 detached garage, out to the side of it. And I'm thinking, wow, this place has a neat feel, big lot. Like, found out later, it's a quarter-acre sized lot in town. And so anyhow, so I take a look. I just Google it because it wasn't on the Realtor.ca app. And sure enough, here's this house is listed for sale, and it's listed for $174,900. So like right there at that 175 mark, and it just felt right. And I called Andrea, I sent her the link. I said, I think I found our house. And anyhow, then we scheduled an appointment to see it, or called the realtor that we've been working with, and she set up an appointment to see it, which ended up being on May 7th, which is the anniversary of the day we met. I guess it was around 2 years previous at that point. And so just, like when we speak about synchronicity and following that flow, surrendering to it, being in that space of the knowing that we will know when we find it, know that there's a place, within 175,000 that feels right as a number, and just, trusting that knowing. And, when seeing this place, just having that feeling and seeing the price, seeing what self knew and knows was out there to be with. And then, then the appointment being scheduled, and then it's on the anniversary of our meeting, and all these little things, that, like with the Land Cruiser, then, going up there, and it all just feels like it flows very, very full of ease for us to plan it and to be with it, and also being a new adventure for our family and a new way of traveling, and honoring sagey space of requiring some pauses, in the trip for the benefit of us all. And, and then being gifted to stay at the place, it's just all these things that when we surrender to it. And it was the thing with the Land Cruiser too. I didn't know how it was going to work to actually purchase it. I just knew that go see it. I just kept hearing, go see it. Like, go make the trek, go up there, check it out. And, it just continually all flows. So that trusting, that surrendering to the process, trusting the intuition over the rational mind, and just allowing it to play out. There's other stories I could share about how that's flowed and how that's worked.
You speak of trusting the intuition, and it brings up a technique that I have used. People say, well, how do you know your intuition is your intuition and not just your mind saying, whatever?
Yes.
Well, I have personally had experience where I had this feeling that I would be most benefited by turning left rather than turning right. And I turn left, and something beautiful happens, right? And so for me, I go, hey, I'm so thankful, that was that was my intuition. Anytime that something happens, let's say, let's say I went right instead of left, and that led to a car accident. When I have instances where I feel intuitive about something and I see a result, I stand on the recognition of the intuition. I recognize that I had intuitive thoughts about that moment, rather than holding the outcome as to good or bad, So for empowering the intuition, whenever I recognize that I've had intuition about something, that I go, yes, 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 that was my intuition. And so there was a day where the exercise for my week had been this, anytime that I was wondering about my life, I would just remind myself that I'm in the right place at the right time. That life is happening. I'm in the right place at the right time. I'm in the right place at the right time. I'm in the right place at the right time. And really, as long as I'm alive, that's the only place I can actually be, is in the right place at the right time. For here I am now. So I'm washing dishes, and I'm like 2/3 of the way through the lot of dishes, and self says, "That's enough. Go for a walk." And I had been repeating to myself all the time, I'm in the right place at the right time. I'm in the right place at the right time. And I said, okay, set the dish towel down, rinsed off the dishes that I had washed, emptied the sink, and left. And I'm walking. I'm in the right place at the right time. And I'm like, okay, I'm walking to the park. And there's this park in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, that is the downtown area. And it has a path that goes around the park. And normally in my life, I like to walk along the lake rather than the opposite side of the park. And so I'm going, and the lake would be the left side, and the opposite side would be the right side. And self says, go to the right. And this is kind of funny because I like to argue with myself sometimes. I said, but I like to go to the left. I like walking along. Go to the right. Go to the right. Okay, I went to the right. Go to the right. Walking along. And I crossed the path with somebody I know. And we go sit down and talk. And she was really looking for someone to talk with and to get some weight off of her chest, that she had some issues going on in her life at the time. And she really wanted to vet this, just to get it out, air it out, and so we sat and we talked for a while. And, self says again, share with her your spirituality. And I said, no, that's personal and private. And I get that nudge again. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know. There's got to be a pretty big reason for me to be sharing my spiritual belief with somebody outside of them asking, and so I didn't say yes to it. She did. So she brings up her spiritual life and talks about it. So then I share mine, and we have, a back and forth about it. And all said and done, she looks to me and she says, thank you so much. I am so very thankful that I crossed your path today, that I feel so much better. I'm strong enough to get through this now. And so in that moment, I said yes. That was real intuition. That was real communication about how I might be beneficial in this life. And I just stood on it. Yes, yes, yes. That was real. That was something real going on in my life. It wasn't some fancy land, And using that as a foundation to correlate to for future times. That whole, because we can really, go ahead.
You continue.
Okay. Because we can easily be in doubt, as to our intuition, or, how do I know it's my intuition? How do I know I'm not just making it up? There's a lot of, being that we have in this Western culture, this materialistic outlook, that the intuition is outside of the material realm. And so we're sometimes without a bearing as to whether or not, it's right guidance or not,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I know it was, I'd heard once many years ago that, that said there's a fine line between the intuition and paranoia. and, and I do, I have experienced the truth of that. Also, what I feel, trumps that is that when it's a real intuition, there won't be any fear or any coercive element attached to it. It's not like you have to do this or else.
Right.
It's like you do this and there's a benevolent feel to it, the source of it. There may be fears attached around that, making that, being with that step in that direction, stuff that we've held on to in the past, but the actual offering of it, what comes through intuitively, will feel benevolent in its source, as opposed to, as I say, any sort of fearful of coercive element that you must do this or else, or if you don't do this, you'll just be the same old asshole that you always were, or, those sorts of things. So, and like you say too, that having the benchmarks, that you remember, okay, well, yeah, there's that time, about the house or about the car or, whatever. It's like, yeah, I trusted that, what is that? Does this feel in line with that, And also asking, as we get more in tune and as we practice asking, just asking what is your origin, and we can pretty quickly learn to discern what feels like truth and what feels like fear, or what feels like light, capital L, capital I, capital G, capital H, capital T, and what feels like the absence of light. And just when we ask for the origin to be revealed as our highest self, then it will be revealed to us. So another little, for a long time, it started, a long time being a period of a few years, and I still practice it. I just began to really be aware on a moment-to-moment basis where at what point my intuitive voice kicked in on something, and what point my rational mind would start to kick in on it. And oftentimes that intuitive thought, that intuitive feeling is the first one that comes through. And I know with myself, then right on top of that intuitive thought or feeling would be the rational mind kicking in there. Well, you don't know that's true. How do you know that's going to work? What information, what evidence is there to support that? You need to really look into this more. You need to figure this out. All of that shit, the figuring it out aspect, the working through it rather than just trusting and having faith in that, in our own intuitive voice, that source, that well of wisdom within each of us is important. And I feel, through little processes of discerning what that is and what that feels like, then we come to know what that intuitive voice is, even on a stronger level. And it's always, to digress for a second, where I got me on this, remembering this truth was hearing Steven Spielberg talk about the intuition, and talking about how he, as a kid, just intuitively picked up a camera and started just making movies and clipping things together, and he just loved doing it. It just felt completely effortless. When he was with it, he was just experiencing just real joy, and he followed that along and made, as we know, quite an amazing path, quite an amazing, career, if we'll call it that. But just and to me, that exercising, that practicing of his ministry, the practicing and the application of his talents and abilities that he brought into this life. And, so what he said, for each of us is, know that intuitive voice inside of us very rarely shouts. It always whispers. So, it's getting to know that quiet, as the Quakers say, the still small voice within, getting to know what that sounds like and listening to it. And the more we listen to it, the more we actually develop a relationship with it. And he said, if we do that and we follow it, he said, that is connected to our life's work, and if we practice that, if we're with that, all of us will benefit. And I think that's so key, is developing a relationship with that still small voice and getting to know what our own individual whisper sounds like of intuitive wisdom. And if we follow that, then, and we're vulnerable and open along the way, allow ourselves to be carried, it's pretty amazing stuff happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing stuff.
Even the one Steve Jobs line, or Steve Jobs, he said, we can't connect the dots looking forward. When we look back, we can only connect the dots looking backwards. He said when he looks at connecting those dots in his life, it's where when he looks back on it, he sees that those were places where he trusted and he truly followed his heart. And so by trusting in our heart and our intuition, it somehow seems to know what the dots are already and how to connect them. So, yeah, the trusting.
Yeah, that's the trust. What am I trusting in? Trust. What is this trust? Like, I don't trust you. I trust you. I don't trust you. I trust you. A trust set forth in a trust. A trust that becomes something that shall provide for others. What is this trust? What is a trust that can be trusted that is a trust? We love words.
Yes.
So, trust. Somebody says, well, I don't trust 13-year-olds. And I said, I do. I trust a 13-year-old to be 13. I don't trust a 13-year-old to be 25.
No. And trust that they'll be exploring boundaries in the way that which a 13-year-old could.
Yeah. Coming into their bodies. Maybe clumsy.
Yeah.
Maybe emotionally clumsy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Trust.
Yeah.
To what level of trust do I grant thee?
Who's doing the granting?
Yeah.
Feels like completion.
Feels like completion.
You concur?
I do indeed. Thank you.
Thank you. Aloha, everyone. Aloha, John.